Welcome to My Morning Cup, a podcast produced by Costa Media Advisors and presented by Rockpoint Bank and EPB. Rockpoint Bank, from Chattanooga for Chattanooga. And EPB, get EPB's fiber optics for the world's fastest community-wide internet. I'm Mike Costa, your host. My guest this week is David Martin. David and his wife Natalie founded the local public relations agency, Heed PR. David, before we trace your eclectic career journey from social worker at the Department of Children's Services to La Paz, Chattanooga, to Bellhops, to Brightside, and now Heed PR, let me ask, what's in your morning cup?
It is usually, these days, it is a protein shake.
Oh, wow.
With creatine and peptides involved.
Creatine and peptides.
That's right. I need all the help I can get, Mike. I started playing tennis about 2 years ago, and that's a very difficult.
When you say started,
yes.
You'd never played tennis before?
Never played. Well, I always wanted to growing up. I played baseball and basketball, and I had 3 siblings. I loved watching tennis. That was the end of the Jimmy Connors era. Going into the Agassi, Sampras era, and I loved watching tennis at that time. There's a lot of hype around it, and I wanted to play, but having 3 siblings, my parents were like, "We're not putting any more routes on the minivan." And
I bet.
As an adult now, I get it. But yeah, after I had been sick a few years ago, and once I got the all clear from my doctors, I kind of adopted this YOLO mentality. I said, I'm going to go out and play some tennis. And thankfully, my wife, Natalie, was into it as well. And so we kind of picked it up, just kind of dinking around, and then got gradually more serious about it. And now I'm playing in leagues and all that. But starting tennis in your mid-40s is a very tough thing to do. It is a young person's sport.
Well, most people in their mid-40s are taking up pickleball.
That's right. And I'll get to pickleball. I will. But now I'm chasing my missed opportunities from my younger years right now. So I need all the help I can get in my morning cup.
Well, there you go. So no coffee or anything?
Well, I'll have one little cup of coffee, just enough to keep the caffeine withdrawal away. I used to guzzle coffee all day long. But now, it's one little cup of coffee, and then I'm focused on...
You make it at home?
Yeah.
Drip or Keurig or...
So I have gone back and forth. I actually just put what's the fancy one that you put in and has the froth on top?
Nespresso. That's what I do.
Yeah, Nespresso. I just got rid of my Nespresso machine. I'd had it for 2 years. I liked it, but I started missing just a regular old cup of coffee. And so now I pulled out my old coffee maker, and it's sitting on the kitchen counter. Now, once I've done this for about 6 weeks, I'll go back to Nespresso, but right now it's drip.
When you were talking about tennis, you said you just took it up, but you were a fan as a kid. Who was your favorite tennis player?
So I really liked Andre Agassi. He was a hard one not to...
When he had hair.
When he had hair, the hair version of Andre. I loved Andre Agassi, but that was such a great time for American tennis because we had Sampras, Agassi, Michael Chang,
McEnroe.
McEnroe
and Connors
kind of phased out by then. But we had some really great players, and there are a lot of that was a great era for tennis. And so I would watch in the summers, Wimbledon, French Open, and the U.S. Open was wrapping up by about the time we went back to school.
And I know this wasn't intended to be tennis talk. Welcome to Tennis Talk.
Yeah.
But you're taking it up in your 40s.
Yeah.
Who's your coach? Are you working with John Sorrow?
So John Sorrow.
And he's an interesting story too.
He is. Well, and so he picked up tennis at the same age I picked up tennis, 44.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I thought he grew up playing.
No. So he's relatively new to the sport as well, but he just kind of like me a few decades ago, he really got into it big time. And so when I first started playing around with my wife, and then I was like, hey, we're having fun. I wonder what it would be like to actually know what I was doing out here. I know John from going to a bunch of UTC basketball games. And so I just called him up, and he graciously, did a couple lessons with me. Now I still play in a bunch of his clinics, but then I also play over at Chattanooga Christian School. They've got a great indoor facility over there, and I take lessons from Ramel and just do clinics. And I play in a bunch of USTA leagues, UTR leagues. If I'm not doing work or at the gym working out, I'm playing tennis somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. And one last note on John, because we were talking before we started recording about retiring. And John retired from insurance.
Yeah.
Got out of that at a relatively young age and focused on tennis, something he enjoyed.
Yeah. Follow your calling. I mean, and it is tough to get in with him now. I mean, I would say he's probably got to be the most in-demand tennis coach in Chattanooga.
That's interesting.
It is.
Because we've got a pretty good tennis history here.
A very good one. This is a great community.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to be a part of it now.
Well, and I know you weren't always part of it because you grew up in Knoxville. Talk about that.
So, I grew up in Knoxville. I'm born in 80. So I'm either the oldest of the millennials or the youngest of the Gen Xers, depending on where you draw that line.
See, I kind of hit that with baby boomers.
Did you really?
Yeah, I'm 62 and boomers go to 64, but I don't really consider myself a boomer.
So if you're not a boomer, is that Gen X? Is that the next one?
I think they came up with some other term for it recently, like the Jones generation or something.
Okay.
Just something that we're lost.
A micro generation?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And I think they do the same thing with people born in the 80s or early 80s. But yeah, so I was born in Knoxville, grew up in Knoxville, still spend a lot of time up there. I do a lot of stuff with the UT system. I have family that lives up there. Some of my best friends, going back to playing with G.I. Joes, still live up there. So I spend a lot of time in Knoxville. I went to the Christian Academy in Knoxville, but I spent a lot of time in the Chattanooga area growing up. My father's from here. He grew up in Sale Creek.
Okay.
His father, a World War II vet, worked at Ross Meehan Foundry, which is now right next to the current Finley Stadium, where was the brewery that was there for a while? Naked River.
Yes.
That was where he actually worked back in the day. When he got a big promotion, he moved the family from Sale Creek to Red Bank, and that's where my dad graduated from high school. But I spent a lot of time coming down here in the summers, mainly northern Hamilton County. By that time, I was either in Sale Creek or up on Mowbray Mountain, that area. And so I had a familiarity.
So it's a second home.
It's always been, I've always had this Knoxville-Chattanooga duality in my life. I'm an East Tennessean, I guess you could say, through and through. And so I came down here for college, UT Chattanooga, in 1999.
And growing up in Knoxville, what I've found, people I know grew up in Knoxville and some nieces and nephews don't always have the strongest desire to stay in town and go to the Big Orange. Yeah,
well, I would say at that time, Knoxville, I would say then, was kind of resting on its Big Orange laurels. There really wasn't much going. It was a great place to grow up.
Yeah,
very safe, great schools, but just there wasn't a lot of dynamism to the community for a young person, and so it wasn't that I didn't want to go to Knoxville. I just, at that point, when 18-year-old kid, just thinking, well, what else is out there? And so I was kind of familiar with Chattanooga. Had a good impression of it. It was great that it was away from my parents, but also close enough I could go do my laundry every other weekend,
Get a good meal.
Have my parents give me some groceries before I came back down here in my Jeep. And that's one of my favorite things about the Knoxville-Chattanooga thing. It's only 90 minutes away. I mean,
easy drive.
Once I clear the mall here, I am at my mom's front door in Lenoir City in less than an hour.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. And that's where the Knoxville traffic starts. So I miss it, thankfully. But yeah, so I came down here. 99 was a great year to be down here because there was so much going on. It was the first year the baseball stadium was on the hill.
Yeah.
Coolidge Park had only been open for a couple of years. Walking Bridge, same thing. Aquarium, same thing. So it was kind of the beginning of the Renaissance phase. At least I always call it the window dressing phase of Chattanooga. And so it was just there was a lot of energy here. And at UTC, especially at the time, to this day, I just am so grateful to UTC because they welcomed me with open arms. I did not know I knew one single person at UTC when I came down here. It was one of my best friend's older sisters. That was it. I didn't know anybody. And I was completely engaged on campus in no time. That campus wrapped its arms around me so fast, and I felt like I was at home. And I just fell in love with Chattanooga through the university.
It's interesting you talked about the energy 99, 2000. I moved here October 99. And I remember when I was interviewing for the job.
So 2 months after me.
Yeah.
Wow.
Was it 2 months? Yeah. So, and I moved here, and my wife and kids stayed in Memphis for 9 months or something like that. But I remember when I was interviewing for the job, one of the things they gave me was a Parade magazine extolling Chattanooga's benefits and how it had transformed itself. It had the Chattanooga choo-choo on the front, that kind of thing, and how that city was transitioning. And now to sit here 26 years later and see even more tremendous change, you really at that point didn't think that possible.
No. But it has been an awesome thing to be a part of the ride and see a city with this kind of trajectory of, I believe, good growth. I believe the positives far outweigh the negatives of the growth of this community, and see it in its different phases over, like you said, the last 25, 26 years. It's been wonderful, and I've been able to create a life for myself here that I really don't think I would have been able to create almost anywhere else.
I'd agree with you 100% on that, and we're going to talk more about that. But I'm going to take you back to Knoxville.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I'm going to learn a little bit about family and growing up. So you're one of four.
Yep.
2 older sisters.
That's right.
And a younger brother.
That's right.
Growing up, what would you guys do for fun? I know you played baseball and basketball, but talk about the neighborhood growing up, what your parents did, that kind of thing.
Oh gosh, so my father was a family attorney.
Okay,
he passed away just before COVID, and we joke, but we're also serious. Like, he got out just in time because cancer got him, and but if it had been 5 months later, we would have had to say goodbye over iPads.
That would have been horrible.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I cannot imagine what that would have been like. But so he was a family attorney, the consummate family man. Just everybody had something good to say about him. Very involved in church, and he was kind of the rock of the family. My mother, she was an incredible stay-at-home mom. She picked up a couple jobs along the way. One was at CAK, Christian Academy in Knoxville, where we went to school. Essentially, so they had this deal where if somebody taught there, they got one of their kids got to go for free, and the other ones got to go to reduced. So my mom essentially worked there until we all graduated.
It's a great way to do it.
And then she retired, and she's awesome. But yeah, I grew up in West Knoxville, Cedar Bluff. Yeah, I went to public school up through the beginning of high school, and it is like a movie scene. It was like Bayside, that kind of incredible public school, incredible parental involvement, teachers and administrators who had, been at the schools forever. Everybody knew everybody. We rode around the neighborhoods on Huffy bikes, and it was the 80s and early 90s. It was just a wonderful, beautiful time. And I look back at that time with just so much appreciation for what I was given a privilege to experience.
Did you have part-time jobs?
I did. My first job ever. It was a great first job. Well, actually, my first job ever was working in the files at my dad's law firm, and I don't really count that. That was part job, part indentured servitude.
Part job,
and but my first job, I guess, was at Chick-fil-A.
Oh wow,
which is great. I mean, it was an incredible experience.
Great training too.
Oh my gosh, it was awesome. And that's where I really got to see great leadership in action. Eddie Halliday was the owner-operator at that time. At that time in Knoxville, there were only 2. There was one in Westtown Mall, and then there was a double drive-through on Kingston Pike. And I started there. Essentially, I was saving money to go on a missions trip. And I was too young to do a lot of things there, but I was allowed, like, my list of responsibilities were I could ring people up, I could make French fries. I couldn't do chicken for some reason. I don't know. Maybe it's something.
They're both fried, right?
They're both fried, right? I don't get it. And then cleaning. Yeah. And to this day, I'd say I would eat off the floor at a Chick-fil-A because if they still do it like they did back then, I mean, we'd pull everything out. We'd clean that thing 3 to 4, entire thing.
Yeah.
Ceiling to floor 3 to 4 times every single day. But Eddie Halliday, he was an incredible leader in that I got to see the boss working just as hard as the lowliest 15-year-old employee, me, every single day. And when you see a leader working at that capacity in front of you, just modeling what good work looks like, that sends a message to the rest of the team. And that was an incredible experience for me right out of the gate.
So as a first job, was that your most important takeaway from
Yes,
that?
absolutely. Just what true servant leadership looks like and what great work ethic looks like, and modeling to your employees or peers what work looks like.
So you're doing that, and young guy, you're not quite in college yet. Do you have in your mind what you want to do with your life?
No. No. I was saving money to go to Peru on a mission trip. What's funny, it's one of my friends, Ben, AKA Bubba, we started at the same time. He was like a year older he was the same age as me. And so I made enough money to go on that mission trip. Well, he stayed on. And then, Chick-fil-A is incredible at grooming, leaders through all their different options there. They paid for his college, immediately put him into like a junior management program once he graduated college. Then after that, they sent him out to the Mountain West, because that's as far west as Chick-fil-A's were opening at the time. And he helped open up a bunch of new stores. And then in his like early 30s, he moves back, and Chick-fil-A says, "You're ready for your own store."
Wow.
And he's like, "Sweet." And I think they essentially told him what his options were. And they're like, "You're going to have the only Chick-fil-A on I-40 between Knoxville and Nashville. You're moving to Cookeville." And he went, and now he's got 3 Chick-fil-A's. And let me tell you what, he's doing all right.
Yeah,
he's doing all right.
And I think you bring up such an important point there, because so many of those high school jobs are in fast food, are in things like that. But companies like Chick-fil-A, if that's what interests you, you can have a pretty good path.
Yeah.
So you talked a little bit about why you came to UTC. What did you study when you got to UTC?
A little bit of everything. So as one of those, didn't know what I wanted to do. I think it was, again, I referenced my father earlier. One of the things that he was adamant about is finding your own way, not having some preordained path, but know yourself, know what your interests and your passions are, what gives you fulfillment, and then follow that course. And that's a very liberating thing, but it also, to somebody in their late teens, early 20s, you can be confused a lot. Well, what does that look like? And to be quite honest with you, I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I grew up. I'm doing quote fingers here. Wanted to do when I grew up until I was in my 30s.
Well, I'm glad you figured it out then, because I'm still struggling, David.
Yeah, so I bounced around. I was a comms major, I think a couple other, but I actually ended up getting a degree in teaching history, so secondary social sciences. And that
was at UTC?
At UTC, yeah. So I got a bachelor's in education, and actually, at one point I had my license to teach in the great state of Tennessee, but obviously my path went a different direction.
Well, and one of the things in doing a little research and some information you gave me, you were driven to be the cool history professor.
Yeah. So when I finished at UTC, I went back up to Knoxville for graduate school. I got accepted into the graduate program for history, and a lot of those programs, they don't admit you for a master's. They just admit you into the program, and once you've completed enough credits and you've done, they say, okay, do you want to do a thesis and wrap it up here, or do you want to keep going towards your doctorate? And so I went up to Knoxville and had a great experience there, but I very quickly learned that there is a huge difference between a trained academic historian and then a history buff. And I am the latter. I'm a history buff. A life in academia doing research nonstop was just not a temperamental match for me at all.
You seem a little more restless than
a little ADHD. I finished my master's and enjoyed it. I really, really did. And enjoyed my research while I did it. But after getting that piece of paper, I was like, okay, I don't really have to be the cool history professor. Actually, I got to be an adjunct history professor back at UTC.
That's pretty cool.
And I don't know if I was cool or not, but I did actually get to be Professor Martin for a little bit.
So what focus of history is it revolutionary time? Is it Civil War? Is it American?
Yeah, well, the older I get, the more I'm just into everything. But at that time, I was into the post-Reconstruction South. And so really looking at how cities and communities defined themselves and grew after the Reconstruction era.
That's got to help you with what you're doing now, though.
Well, one of the things you learn is time is a flat circle and not much changes. There are a lot of themes that are the same. I mean, if you look at my master's thesis, I don't even know if I gave you this in the notes, but my master's thesis was on the inaugural season of the Southern League of Professional Baseball, which is still a thing today that the Lookouts play in. Well, that was in like 1885 or something like that. I'd have to read my own thesis to remember. I wrote it 20-something years ago.
Well, we know AI didn't do it.
Yeah. AI would have probably written it a lot better than I did. But so the Southern League of Professional Baseball was essentially a way for Southern boosters in different cities to prove that they had everything desirable that would draw people in to live and work and invest in their communities, right? And so baseball at that time was like the big sport, but all the professional leagues were up in the Northeast. Well, the Southerners, whether they were in Birmingham, Atlanta, Chattanooga, Nashville, they were trying to showcase, oh, we've got all these things too. We've got universities, we've got symphonies, we've got libraries, we've got baseball. And so so all of these civic leaders from these different cities across the South banded together and created the Southern League of Professional Baseball. It was run out of Atlanta by a guy named Henry Woodfin Grady. There's still
Grady Hospital.
Grady Hospital, right. And so he was a jack of all trades, a consummate entrepreneur. He actually coined the phrase the New South. But he owned, at that time, the Atlanta Constitution, the newspaper, which was the most read newspaper across the entire South, and then the most well-read Southern newspaper outside of the South. And so he used it essentially as a PR mouthpiece for the region. And so he was the leader in creating the Southern League of Professional Baseball. He was also, you're never going to believe this, he was also a real estate developer. Where do you think the first stadium went in Atlanta? In the same area where he lived, and he was trying to get all his friends to build big houses.
I'm shocked.
Using baseball, to catalyze development. Amazing. Yeah.
Is that done today?
I've never heard of such a thing. I don't know. Maybe we could find some examples around town. I don't know. But anyway, so it was a lot of fun. And so I'm still into baseball. Yeah. I still love history. I just am not the cool history professor.
Well, what'd you play in baseball?
Catcher.
Yeah. I played catcher too.
Yeah.
Up through the 8th grade. And 2 reasons I got out of baseball. One was I was better at football. The 2 reasons I got out of baseball, one was my batting average, 0.00.
Or something close.
That was literally it. And then as a catcher, and I'm stealing this from Bob Uecker, I figured out the best way to catch was to wait for the ball to quit rolling, walk back to the backstop, pick it up, and throw it back.
Yeah. Baseball was my fun sport.
Was it?
I did that to hang out with the guys, my friends who were much better but still played.
But your sport was basketball.
Basketball. That's what I loved playing. I was a point guard. I have not shot a basketball in probably 10 years now. But
really?
Yeah.
That's
I still watch it a lot. You'll catch me at all the home Mocs games. But I just don't play.
Yeah. Don't want to?
It's just hard to find 46-year-old dudes who want to go pick up basketball on a Sunday or a Saturday.
So you've got your master's in history. You're getting out of school.
Yeah.
What do you do? Are you staying in Knoxville getting a job?
Yeah. So this is the period of arrested development. So I'm at this crossroads again. What am I going to do? I'm not going to be a teacher. I'm not going to be a professor. Well, Dad's an attorney. Maybe I'll just go work with him. One of those people who,
because history ties into that. I mean, that's
sure.
A lot of lawyers get their undergrad in history.
They do. Yeah, they do. Political science is another big one that they do. But so I thought about that and I actually talked to my dad about it. And he said, well, listen, do you know what kind of law I do? And I'm like, the law kind. I was aware that he did family law, which is a pretty brutal
It's got to be emotionally hard.
Yes, and I still don't know how he had such a great, optimistic view of the world, and going through a lot of the stuff that he saw. And that's what, and that's actually, he did the greatest thing for me. The only time my dad got me a job, I think, was to scare me away from a job. And so we talked, and he said, "Yeah, I know you do family law." And he's like, "Do you know what that means?" And divorces, custody, stuff like that was my guess. And he's like, "Yeah, that and a lot of other stuff." He's like, "Listen, I've got a friend who can help you probably get a job. If you get the job and you do it for a year and you still want to come join me, we'll talk about it." And so I was like, "Cool, where am I going to go work?" And he said, "The Department of Children's Services."
Oh, wow.
Boom. Woof. And I said, "Sure, yeah." And I still did not know what I was really walking into. And so I ended up, went through the application process, and I ended up getting a job with in the Knox County department. And it was one of the worst jobs that I'm grateful for, or I guess how they say it, the best job you would never do again. I think that's how you say it. Yeah. And it really opened my eyes to a lot in terms of, how other people live their lives, the things that they encounter, the battles that they fight. And so it took a lot of the things that you hear about how, quote unquote, the other half lives, and you're literally in their homes now. Yeah. You're sorting out their lives with them. You're trying to keep these families together. You're trying to find a good place for a child to grow up that's not maybe their biological home. I mean, it is some really, really, really tough stuff. But I did that for about a year and a half. Again, I'm very grateful that I had that opportunity. I would not do it again at this point in my life, but it really gave me a larger, more refined context for the way that the people around me live their lives and what they go through.
You do this for a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Do you go back to your dad and say, this family law thing might not be for me?
Yeah, we had that conversation. But simultaneously, I was still in love with Chattanooga.
Mm-hmm. And
I'm still wanting to get back to Chattanooga this whole time. And maybe my experiences with DCS were heightening my desire to get back to Chattanooga. I don't know. But yeah, so after about a year and a half, I had actually, for like the last 6 months, I've been trying to get a job remote, from Knoxville in Chattanooga, which was a very tough thing. It's a tough thing to do now. It was a very tough thing to do back in 2008. I was having no success. And at some point I was like, I'm just going to move back to Chattanooga.
So you kind of went on blind faith.
Blind faith and a little bit of money in my savings account.
You moved down here without a job?
Without a job.
Got a place to live?
Mm-hmm.
And so where'd you find a job?
I was about to have to bite the bullet and beg for some kind of bailout from the family when I ended up getting a job with True North Custom Media. They needed a copywriter. And one of the things that I learned how to do well in grad school was how to write.
Mm-hmm.
I did not know, I had no training in marketing writing, but I did know how to put sentences together in a way that made enough sense. And so I got a job with them, and I've been in the marketing communications space ever since then. I really only lasted in the editorial department at True North about 6 months because a fellow by the name of Jason Provonsha.
I've heard of him.
I heard of this guy, maybe over at Steam Logistics or something like that.
Yeah. And we've spoken to Jason on
the
My
show.
Morning Cup.
I'm sure. Yeah, he and I actually have he's from Knoxville. We went to the same high school.
His dad was an FBI agent.
Yes, yeah. I know. And so he graduated with one of my older sisters from CAK.
So you knew him prior to present day.
So yes, absolutely. And we still get together, hang out. We're still friends. But he led the business development department at True North at the time. And we did not know each other, worked there.
Yeah.
All the departments were on different floors. And one day we passed each other in the hallway and I'm like, is that? And he's like, is that? What are you doing here? What are you doing here? And so anyway, after about 6 months, they're like, hey, this guy likes to talk a lot. Maybe we should put him in sales. I'd only sold women's shoes at Dillard's at the mall here in college for a little bit. That was my only sales experience.
I wish I had known that. That'd be a whole podcast.
Yeah. The Al Bundy take. But yeah, so I knew nothing about sales. And then all of a sudden, they gave me a territory. I was outside sales. My territory was Texas and everything around it. So once a week, this was before Chattanooga had a lot of great flight options. So I was driving up to BNA in Nashville, hopping a Southwest airline flight to somewhere in Texas, and then ping on a Sunday, and then I'd ping around the state, and I'd come home on Thursday. I mean, we did this for like 2-3 years, something like that. It was because it was Oklahoma, Louisiana, New Mexico, Kansas. It was also the biggest I've ever been because I'm just eating Tex-Mex, barbecue. When I'm in New Orleans, I'm eating,
and you're sitting on a plane, you're not getting up and working out in the hotel.
All of a sudden, my suits are getting real tight, and so anyway, I did that for 2-3 years, and it was a great experience in a lot of different ways for me. I still, that experience informs a lot of the way I do my work now, and actually a lot of the ways that we run our own business.
How so?
Well, so I am glad I did sales because
you do it every day now.
Media pitching is sales. It is sales. You learn how to take rejection and just keep on going. You learn about how to understand what somebody needs and position what you've got to what they need, whether it's a reporter or an editor or whatever. And then also operations. Natalie and I, my wife and co-founder and partner at Heed PR, we start our week with the exact same production meeting that we used to do back at True North all those years ago. Like that's the thing about True North is they had at the time just incredible processes that enabled us to be very, very productive. And so we're like, no matter what we think of our overall experience there, like it was an incredible way to run a business.
Well, that's a great point because a lot of people will have jobs that they didn't particularly like, but there's something you can learn pretty much everywhere you go.
And I've been at that. There was a stretch in my career where I literally had no clue where I was going, and I just remember praying, Lord, at some point, all I ask is that all of this makes sense and is useful. And we finally got into a place where it does, right? The answered prayer is there, but there's those times where I don't even know what I'm doing here.
Well, you're at True North, so how long are you there, and then what's next?
I was there for like 3-ish years, and so I was gone 3 weeks of the month, 5 days of those weeks, and I joke with people all the time that I was essentially just going out on the road, coming home, mowing my yard, doing my laundry, and hitting the road again.
You were George Clooney and Up in Air.
Yes, I was.
Up in the Air.
I mean, I was gone nonstop. And at the time I was living out in East Brainerd, which was a much different place to live than the experience that I had at UTC being downtown.
You were out in the burbs.
I was. And nothing wrong with East Brainerd, but it was just a totally different setup, and it was not what I had fallen in love with during my first Chattanooga chapter. And I just remember, I think it was 2011, so 3 years after I'd gotten that job at True North, I remember being like, I need to be a Chattanoogan. Like, I'm not plugged in at all.
This was just where you were sleeping.
Yeah, I was just sleeping here. And so I made a commitment to myself that I was going to become a Chattanoogan. I didn't know what that looked like at all, but I did know that at the time I was young enough to qualify for Young Professionals of Chattanooga. I could get plugged, but I knew that there were alumni groups at UTC that I could get involved with. I had become familiar with a great nonprofit in town called La Paz Chattanooga that I wanted to volunteer with. And so those were my first 3 avenues into becoming a Chattanoogan, was getting involved in each one of those organizations. And it radically changed my life.
So as a young person who's moved to Chattanooga, you really hadn't made connections, and you decide you want to become a Chattanoogan. The first thing you do is go out and you volunteer your services.
That's right. So if I had any young professional asking me how to get plugged in, that's exactly it. There's a very hypest entrepreneur guy out there, Gary Vaynerchuk. I'm sure you're familiar with him. And he had a book, 15 years ago or 10 years ago called Jab, 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 Hook. And it was essentially, before you ask anything of anybody, you give multiple times over before you have an ask. And that's been my relationship with Chattanooga. But the thing is, I gave. I've never had to ask.
Because it comes back to you.
It just comes back.
When I moved here, end of 99, 2000, my dad gave me some great advice.
Yeah.
He says, because he had moved from the Northeast to Memphis in 1970 to buy into a business. And he said, when you get there, take your first year, 2 years, and say yes to everything. If someone comes in and says, hey, we need to do this, say yes.
Do it.
We'd like you to be on this board, do it. Because that's where you're going to get your connections.
Absolutely.
Because you don't know if you're volunteering for something, the person you might be paired up with or meeting at a board meeting or something like that.
Yeah.
You don't know where that relationship can bring you or who you're going to meet and, and what they, what you can do for them and they can do for you.
Absolutely. And so, and that has been very evident in my own life is, again, I do get asked every once in a while. I have an undergraduate from UTC call me because they're doing some project in PR about something and they've got to talk to a practitioner, right? What's it like to be a PR guy? And a lot of times the topic of networking comes up and they say, well, when should I start networking? And I'm like, 10 years before you need something. Just get to know people, help people, connect with people with no end game other than you're just making connections. Because at some point it will make sense. And I think in my own life that was like, so can I do a quick pivot on our story here?
Yeah.
So I ended up leaving True North. I'm another because I got burned out on sales. And I was always just okay at sales, just not really that great at it. So I'm like, okay, well, sales isn't going to be it. So what is it now? Lord, show me the way, And I had been volunteering at La Paz.
Mm-hmm.
And right about that time, Stacy Johnson had raised enough money where she could hire her first ever marketing and development person. And so I'd been volunteering. I said, I'd love to do it. And so I was there for another 3 years. But while I was there, I applied to and got accepted into the Leadership Chattanooga program. Again, I have no goals of getting something out of this aside from just being involved, learning how Chattanooga works, all that stuff, making connections. And it was an incredible experience. Diane Parks was the director at the time. She's a great neighbor.
I'm sure you had the best class.
Yeah, the best class ever, of course. And so fast forward from that experience where I just made all these incredible connections, I opened Heed PR.
Yeah.
Where do you think the vast majority of my book of business came from? Those connections back then. I had no idea when I was in Leadership Chattanooga, I was at some point going to be opening my own PR agency. Right. Had no clue. But when I do, all of those connections made sense.
Well, and to your point earlier about networking, it goes from being networking to relationship building.
Absolutely.
And that's where it pays off.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't be doing it for it to pay off.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But it's what brings people to you.
Yeah, for sure.
So you go to La Paz. And I guess I'm trying to figure out how you end up at Bellhops.
Yeah, a very weird route. So I'm working over at La Paz, and so it's this dual position where I'm in charge of marketing, but I'm also doing development. So I'm essentially educating people on what La Paz is, what they do, the mission, all that, getting them excited about it, and then saying, well, hey, if you're that excited about it, would you like to write us a check?
You're in sales again.
Yeah, it's back and forth. And so that's actually where I wrote my first press release, and I hope it lives nowhere right now because it was really, really bad, I'm sure. But I was there for about 3 years, and let's just be real. I enjoyed my time there. I'm still involved heavily with La Paz to this day, but there's really only so much a gringo who doesn't speak Spanish can do at that point. And so it was my time to kind of to look for something new. And so again, I'm at this kind of impasse. All right, Lord, what do we do with this? And by this time, I'm writing columns for the newspaper here and there. I'm just all over the place. I'm just throwing noodles at the wall, seeing what sticks. And Bellhops had just become a thing. They just moved to Chattanooga. And they had posted a job for just a marketing generalist. And it was essentially, they'd raised millions of dollars. You just had Matt Patterson in here, one of the co-founders of Bellhops, who's now over at Brickyard. And they were doing at the time what I think a lot of startups do. They're throwing bodies at problems, and we're just trying to figure it out, because everybody's trying to figure it out. And so they had hired a pretty big marketing staff. And I was hired on as a marketing generalist just to do anything. And I get in there, and they've already got some other people in the department. I'm looking around at who's kind of doing what and kind of how the machine works. And I'm thinking, man, I think we can have some success on the earned media front. By this time, I've done a little bit more PR work at La Paz. I've got a little bit of chops under my belt. And I go to Matt Patterson and Cam Duty, and I kind of tell them what I want to do. And they say, do it, go, figure it out. And so I just learn as I go.
Yeah.
And we ended up, golly, we had an absolute media field day over there. I think maybe you and I have talked about this before, but I was there for 2 years. Over the course of 2 years, we had a favorable media hit somewhere in the United States. We averaged Monday through Friday for 2 years. That's everything from the Times Free Press to the front page of the New York Times business section. I mean, we were everywhere. A lot of great feel-good stories. There were some really big narratives that we were able to kind of tie ourselves to that we just kept writing and writing and writing. And to this day, Matt and Cam just said, figure it out. And I luckily was able to. I had a great team that I ended up leading. And we just had, again, an absolute field day at the time.
But what a great thing to recognize that their story was so unique. You know, a college moving service, then all of a sudden what they become today. And the media's going to pick up on that. They like to tell those stories.
Yeah. And there, we had a lot of different narratives that we could play. We had kind of this dual pronged strategy, kind of a national strategy, and then we also had a local strategy where we chased national headlines, and we were chasing the big narratives. Then were the dawn of the sharing economy, the Uber for X month. You were like, oh, it's Uber for moving, it's Uber for this, it's Uber for that, and we rode that wave on the national front big time. But then in the local markets, it was a very friendly PR opportunity to talk about, oh, this is a great job for college kids. They can build their own schedule. They're getting paid double the minimum wage. They're getting, tips and all this stuff. All yada, yada, yada. And so again, we were just getting all these hits from all these different places because we were able to plug into all these different popular stories that were emerging at the time. And then I got recruited out to help another startup.
Where'd you go?
So another very interesting opportunity is a group at that point called Brightside. This was a moment where the legal cannabis industry was becoming a thing. At that time, most everything was on the West Coast. And so I helped launch a business in that space that operated in Oregon. I did all the PR work from here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That's before remote work was really, really cool, And so I did all the marketing and PR stuff from Chattanooga. We had an incredible launch. I would say next to Snoop Dogg's launch in California, in the industry, we probably had the most successful launch at that time for a brand. And I mean, I'm talking, we launched about 3 weeks before the huge annual conference in Las Vegas. We went from nobody knowing who we were to we were the bells of the ball walking into this thing. I mean, our sales team had nonstop meetings the whole time. People were like, oh yeah, I've heard about you guys. It was really, really cool. It was a space I knew nothing about. So I had to educate myself every single day. And so I did that for about a year, and right at about the year mark, they wanted everybody to move out west. And that's when my wife, Natalie, and we'd always talked about, doing our own thing. At this point, I actually had my first client in the door. I was helping a friend on the side with his business, doing the PR stuff. And I said, well, Natalie, my job we're not moving to Oregon.
Yeah.
She's like, I don't want to move to Oregon. We love Chattanooga. And I said, well, if we're not going to do it if we don't do it now. We've already got one client. Let's just do it. And so I jumped in and started Heed on my own. Natalie actually had the toughest job. When I say on my own, I was the first one to leave my job and go into it. She actually had the rougher deal because she kept her 9 to 5. And then she would come home on the nights and weekends and bail me out of stuff.
Yeah. What year was this?
This was 2018.
Okay.
And, we went, at first, Lord, let us pay our mortgage. Let us figure this thing out. And the goal was hopefully at the end of the first year, we would have had enough business in the door that Natalie and I could have the conversation about what it would look like for her to come on full time too. So that was our goal, 1 year, and hopefully both of us can be full time on this. Within 3 months, we had so much new business hit. I remember telling her, Natalie, you've got to quit your job and help me out now, or I'm going to get crushed under the weight of this thing, which is what a great problem to have 3 months earlier, I'm praying, Lord, let me pay my mortgage, to now I'm like, Natalie, leave your job because we've got too much business.
But if you do get crushed and you're not able to do what you promised to do, then that's going to crush you in a different way.
Then you're done.
Yeah.
You're done. And let's just be real, in a market the size of this market,
you're done.
Yeah. If people are singing your praises, awesome. Yeah. If they're not, you're in trouble. Yeah. Like, there's not a lot of places you can hide. So thankfully my wife jumped on board, at about the 4-month mark, and that was 8 years ago.
Wow.
Amazing.
What was it like starting a business, being out on your own a year before COVID hits? And then COVID hits, and did that affect you the way it affected other businesses?
That's a really great question. We were riding high when COVID hit. Again, like, Natalie came on, she's an operations extraordinaire. We got a great book of business at this time. We are just doing great work. We are like, we can't even believe this is, holy cow, can you believe this? It's awesome. And then COVID hits. And I ran a code red analysis. Like, how many clients can we lose, and still have, the ability to have our business? So I'm seeing red right out of the gate. And, but it turned out it was incredible for our business, because so many people needed help on the communications front during that time, especially a lot of like our white collar clients at the time, where, we have an accounting client, right? And at that time, a lot of the tax stuff, all the money that was being given out, like, they were having to educate their people, and they're learning stuff on the fly too. And so we're helping them get that messaging out to not only their clients, but then internally what that looks like. And so actually we went from thinking like, oh, we could be like shutting the door at some point, to, we're thinking, how do we handle all this business right now? Thank God we have the ability to just work from home, because we were working our longest days during COVID because demand was so high for services on the communications front.
So the business built quickly.
It did.
Yeah.
It did.
Is it still just you and Natalie, or do you have others working with you?
So it's just me and Natalie. We have a few contractors that we work with, but it's just the two of us. We kind of had this decision to make when we started Heed. Do we want to grow and be like a big firm, chasing big accounts, be a big guy?
Yeah. Or
do we want to stay small and know our clients and actually get to be true partners to them? And, it's fun to think about being a really important guy, everybody knows, and the big firm and all that stuff. Yeah. But we ended up choosing, Natalie, again, to her credit, we sat down and we went through this goals analysis right out of the gate. Like, why are we doing this? What do we want our work life to look like? What do we want our life, our personal lives to look like, and all this stuff? And we went through this exercise, and we got to the end of it, we were like, keep it small.
What a great exercise. And not only great exercise, but to have the forethought to go through that, because a lot of people building businesses don't do that. And they probably get their business to a point to where they have no choice of what they're going to be.
Absolutely. And so we got to make that choice early on. Now, the thing is, I'll never be able to sell Heed PR because it's just me and Natalie.
Yeah.
But we've been able to run a business and partner with the people and organizations that we truly value. And I can tell you what's going on at each one of my clients' organizations, what their needs are, what their strengths are, all that stuff. Whereas if we had gone the other route, I would just be a salesman managing people. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that's just not what I enjoy doing. Yeah. And so I truly enjoy what we do now. And of course, when we first opened, if you had a check that cleared the bank, I was your PR guy, right? And so over the years, we've been able to kind of refine the kind of work and the kind of organizations that we enjoy and do our best work with.
Yeah.
And I was asked not too long ago what our mission is. And our mission is not so much PR related. Our mission is to contribute to the success of local organizations that are doing incredible work that make our community stronger. And if we can do that, we're doing a great job. And so like our mission is to, again, create a stronger, more connected Chattanooga. And we're able to do that through partnering with organizations that do that in their own respective lanes.
Well, it goes back to what you said earlier about networking. You got to give. You got to give. You got to
Give.
give. You got to give. I want to get to two things before we run out of time.
Sure. We haven't run out yet? Okay.
We're cruising along. Believe it or not, David, we're cruising along. I want to know two things. One, tell me a little bit about the Feed the Narrative.
Okay. Yeah.
And then the other one, I want to talk briefly about public television.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So Feed the Narrative was kind of a natural offshoot of Heed PR. Going back to COVID, I had a little bit more time on my hands. I'd always wanted to write a book. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, like, it'll be a lot easier for me to write a book about stuff I know about than to make up some fictional,
the Great American Novel.
Yeah. That's not going to be what I produce. But I can tell people who are self-taught PR people how to learn to do their work right out of the gate, like a 101 crash course.
I've read your book.
Yeah. So I wrote. So that was my COVID project. I wrote PR for startups and growing businesses. We self-published it. Every month, I get a notification that Amazon has paid me money, which means people are still buying that book, which still blows my mind. But it was essentially, most people in my space are self-taught. There's a lot of people who go get their PR degrees, and then usually they go to like corporate PR. Mm-hmm. But people who are doing like working with small businesses and organizations, a lot of those people are self-taught. Mm-hmm. Usually, and a lot of people who are internal at an organization, they're hired as a marketer, and one day their boss comes in and is like, "Hey, you can write press releases too, right?"
You're good, right?
And they're like, "Yeah, I can Google it." I mean, that's literally what how it went for me. So I wrote that book, and then it was just kind of, we didn't want to just let the book just kind of go out there. We wanted to do something with it. And I was like, well, we can build some training around this for these self-taught folks. And so we built out over the course of a year this program called Feed the Narrative. And we've had, a good number of people go through it. And so it's an online training that people can do. It usually takes about a week to do, using the book as the curriculum. And the goal is, once they get through the training, they at least have like a 101 knowledge of what PR is, how it can be utilized in an actual organization, and then actually like deliverables, how to actually set this thing up.
What a great resource for small businesses. How do they find it?
They can just go to feedthenarrative.com.
Easy enough.
Easy enough. I mean, one of the reasons we're Heed PR is the URL was available, and one of the reasons we went Feed the Narrative is that thing was available. So we did that, but we also do, we do consulting as well through that. But that was just something we thought there are a lot of people kind of operating the way this in similar fashions to us. I remember when I was at La Paz and then at Bellhops having to teach myself everything. And I truly remember wondering, is there a resource out here that can just teach me this stuff? And so a few years later, I decided to do that myself.
Yeah, it's funny you put it like that, because we had just talked to Matt Patterson, and he was talking about the most successful entrepreneurs solve a problem. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what you were doing with that. I want to shift gears on you real quick.
Yeah.
WTCI Public Television, you're the incoming chair.
Yes.
Obviously.
Well, as of July 1, I'm the chair.
That's right. God, are we already into July?
We're almost to August, brother.
I'm on the board, and I should have greeted you properly. Hello, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, right.
But talk a little bit about why public television is important, and how particularly WTCI addressed the funding pullback by the federal government.
Yeah. So I've always been a fan of public broadcasting, huge fan. Obviously, I grew up, I think a lot of us have these stories of course, I watch, Mr. Rogers and Sesame Street. But actually, my engagement with public broadcasting has spanned the entirety of my life. And it has benefited my life in so many different facets along the way. And again, this is real. I'm not just making this up because I'm the chair now. When I was a kid, obviously I had the very similar experience to a lot of people. But then I'm also the greatest beneficiary. And in addition to all the other wonderful things my wife does, she's like a self-taught chef, like home chef. Where did she learn to cook? America's Test Kitchen on public broadcasting. We love traveling. Mm-hmm. Okay, so where did we learn to travel?
Rick Steves.
Yeah. Seriously, when my wife and I, first moved in together, we did not have two nickels to rub together, and we would watch Rick Steves. He would come on, I think, at like 10 o'clock on the alternate channel, the Create channel. And we would just watch him talk about Europe. And we were like, one day, we're going to get to do that. And we actually ran into Rick Steves in Florence, Italy one time.
That's pretty cool.
At the Medici Palace. It was amazing.
Did you talk to him?
Yeah, we did. We have a picture. It was in the, we were still in the mask phase. Like the world was just opening up. And he was there doing research because his tours were about to start again. And he was making sure that the first people who were going to be courageous enough to start touring again, he wanted to make sure that the experiences were still the same. So we literally run into Rick Steves, and I was able to tell him, "You're the reason we're here," which is a super cool thing to do.
You got to tell me the picture you got with him doesn't have mask on.
Yeah, we're wearing masks. I know. Unfortunately,
that's not Rick Steves.
It's Natalie and Rick, and you can see just how all you can see is Natalie's eyes are so wide because we're not starstruck by like big celebrities. Like we have like niche celebrities that we're big about, and that's one of ours. So there's that. And it's last night I'm watching All Creatures Great and Small as I'm going to bed last night. It's a great bedtime, feel good show. But I was asked by Jim Tanner to be on the board back in 2022. He was the outgoing chair at the time. And, I thought it's just absolutely something that I want to be involved in. And so I said, yes, I'll be on the board. And I still think we talk a lot about program. Like when we talk about programming, we're talking about what's on TV. One of the things that I'm such a huge champion for WTCI on is what they do off the screen. Like all the Educate programs that they do, going in and working with children from across the community on educational things, a lot of them from disadvantaged communities. These are things that people do not, a lot of people who just turn on the TV and see it or they click through it, like they have no idea what actual people, their actual neighbors who are employees at WTCR are doing across the community. And that is what, I've heard people argue left and right from both sides, whether the federal government and tax dollars should be funding, public broadcasting and all this. And and my take on that is I don't really care so much about that argument at this point. My deepest care is seeing the incredible work that this team of people do, that Congress passed a budget 2 years ago, quote unquote, guaranteeing funds to all these different organizations across the United States. Anybody in nonprofit knows when you build a budget for 2 years, you're beholden to that budget and you got to make that budget work. People hire off that budget. They do a lot of stuff off of that budget. And then, a few months later, it just gets ripped right out from under them. And I think that's absolutely terrible. And so, my goal as chair and my fellow board member sitting across from me, Mike, is to make sure that these people are still able to do the incredible work that they have been doing for so long for this community, because this community has benefited from it in so many different ways. And luckily, we've had a lot of champions across Chattanooga step up to fill that funding gap. We're building out an endowment right now that's being led by some incredible leaders in our community to make sure that the funds are there for the foreseeable future. And we've also had just record-setting numbers in terms of how many people are joining the organization as members, as donors. We're up in last year we had over like 200 or 2,500 new members of WTCI, which is absolutely incredible to be a part of a community. And Chattanooga does this. We do it all the time here. We step up when we believe in something. And it's been really humbling to see so many people step up and back this organization.
Yeah, the outpouring from the community has been tremendous. And WTCI, if I'm not mistaken, is one of on the top tier of the stations that replaced that money on their own. Yes,
absolutely. And I think it's great. Chattanooga, we like to talk about things that we do first and we do well. It's really fun to do that in kind of like a microcosm. Yeah. What we're doing at WTCI, what Bob Culkeen and his team are doing over there is absolutely incredible. And I hope that over the next few years, we're able to set a course that other member stations across the country can emulate.
Yeah, that's a great point.
It'd be really neat.
We talk about just TCI for another hour.
Yeah.
But we are running out of time. So before I get to the last question, David, I need to remind our listeners who makes all this possible, and it's our presenting sponsors, EPB. Get EPB fiber optics for the world's fastest community-wide internet, and Rockpoint Bank, your local banking partner, your business, your bank, your future. Finally, a reminder to our listeners, if you like My Morning Cup, please hit the subscribe button, and you'll have the latest episode downloaded every Monday morning into your inbox. This is the last question. What would you tell that 25-year-old David Martin is important for a happy life?
Oh, man. There's been a lot of experiences along the way that have given me a lot of, I guess, clarity to this point. I think the most recent thing that has given me clarity is my battle with cancer 3 years ago. My wife will tell you now that I'm a much easier person to be around, happier person to be around. And it's because I've been able to really see what matters, invest in what matters, and then just not worry about the rest. I think I would encourage the 25-year-old David to just continue to pay it forward at some point. If you keep paying it forward, if you're a good person, you do good work, and you invest in others, your time will come. It absolutely will. And then from the most recent experiences I've had, anything that is negative or a vanity project or anything like that, just drop it.
Yeah.
And focus on what matters.
Get that out of your
Just get it out.
Curious question for you on your cancer diagnosis. Mm-hmm. You're cruising along. Yeah. You're doing well. Your business is hitting everything. You're top of the world, and everything's worked out.
Yeah.
What's your reaction when you're sitting across from the doctor and he or she says, "I don't have good news for you"?
Yeah. Well, I feel like we're in like the bonus track portion of the podcast here, and you know, I've really never had the chance to talk about this in front of a lot of people. So it was tough, and it was one of those. We knew something was up. You go in for testing. Whenever they start doing more testing and more testing and more testing, that's never a good sign. You want to do like one test. They come in and say, everything's good, you know, or they tell you, you know, they can easily fix something. So the more testing you're doing, the worse you're feeling. It was a tough thing. It was the toughest battle I've ever been through in my life. It is also, in hindsight, of course, now maybe one of the best things that ever happened to me in my life, in terms of correcting how I live, my perspective of the world and the people around me. My marriage is better. My spiritual life is better. My friendships are better. I wouldn't be playing tennis if it wasn't for it.
You wouldn't want to do it again.
I wouldn't want to do just like DCS. I wouldn't want to do it again, but I learned a lot of great stuff from it. It was really, really tough. We kept on. I worked the entire time through chemo and radiation. And towards the end there, my work day was probably about 2 hours, maybe. Yeah. Just something besides staring at the wall in front of me. But we had incredible clients who stayed with us the whole time. I had obviously an incredible wife who's an operations guru who was able to make sure we were still able to generate good work. And so I always tell people it was the best of a terrible situation. Yeah. Again, don't want to do it again. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. Thankfully, I don't have many enemies. But I wouldn't wish it on the worst of them. But actually now I'm a better man because of that battle.
Well, David, you've been very enlightening. The perspective is important, and particularly because you're a young guy, and to have success at where you are and then to be hit with something like that, but maintain the perspective of appreciating what's really important.
Yeah.
Is very important.
I appreciate that, man.
Thanks for the conversation.
Hey, thank you.
It's always good to be with you.
Hey, the only thing missing this time was we don't have 2 cheeseburgers in front of
us. From the inside, yeah. Or from Tremont.
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely. Good to see you, Dave.
Hey, likewise.
Thanks for listening to My Morning Cup, a podcast by Costa Media Advisors. If you liked this episode, please share it with a friend. I release a new episode each week, so be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple, Google, or wherever you listen to podcasts.